Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the DeMarco record review, this time with our faces. In video format, we're doing a little different format, a much shorter format here, more condensed. This is still going to be a deep dive into the records.
Or we're listening to the songs.
Oh, absolutely. It's about the songs.
I think when so many of the reviews that are done, or the big Rolling Stone and so many others, they rate the 500 greatest albums, 250 greatest albums, 100 greatest
Apple's
albums.
100, yeah.
But what they don't do, and I think they do just a overview or a generic, like, oh, this album was great, without really diving into the individual songs. I am a firm believer that when you rate an album, the songs better be great if you're going to be in the stratosphere of the greatest albums ever.
I agree. And while the impact of an album and the vision and the flow of it is all very important to it, the songs are, the music itself is what we're going to be going into. And with that, we have our grading system for our album. If you'd like to introduce that.
The DeMarco Matrix is back. The DeMarco Matrix is
I'll put a picture of it on screen.
Formula that Roman and I came up with where we give every song a rating 1 to 10. Very simple. We can go 1 decimal point in. So a great song could have a rating of an 8.3, a rating of an 8.7, something like that. So that's how we rate the songs. And again, this is our own opinion. You may have a completely different opinion on each song, but I think when you evaluate song by song, you're going to get a better purview of how good the album is. I think you have to do a deep dive if you really want to assess an album's merit.
I agree. But obviously the songs, while they are very important, there are a few other factors that play into an album and its quote-unquote greatness. Okay? The first of all being its overall impact and influence on, just in general, on music, on the political climate of the world, on whatever it's going for, the impact it has on, or it had on the world.
And on future generations of musicians.
Yeah, it's timelessness.
I think so many of these albums have had a tremendous impact that goes on for generations. So that's part of that one criteria, impact and influence.
For sure. The next one is the vision, the theme, or the flow of it, which means, like, you know, how well does the album go together? Is it cohesive? Does the songs in the album, do they go together in a way that makes sense? If it's like a conceptual album, you know, does the story come across from beginning to end?
Right. I think that's a very important, and so many people talk about themes, visions. What is this album about? Each one of these is getting 10%. That's the 10% that we give to vision, theme, flow.
Yep, so 70% is the song, 10% goes to impact and influence, 10% goes to the vision, the theme, and the flow, and the final 10% goes to the it factor, that gut reaction, okay, that je ne sais quoi, you know, just like the feeling.
Undefinable, and many times it's just, what is your gut reaction? Where do you think this album should be rated? There are certain things that an album has. This is where you talk about the sum and not the parts. This is the one line item that can be looked upon as the sum.
And today, the sum of the parts we're looking at is Revolver by the Beatles.
Right.
1966.
We wanted a big one. We wanted
wanted
an album that's consistently ranked among the greatest albums ever. We wanted an album that is of that stature. I think Revolver certainly fits that. So let's do it.
I'm excited.
Let's do it. Let's go.
Yep.
Revolver. Here we come.
Here we go. First track, Taxman, sung by George Harrison.
'Cause I'm the tax man. Yeah, I'm the tax.
Taxman. George.
It's an important song. It's a song that talks of maturity. The Beatles showed serious maturity here. They went from singing about Love, Love Me Do to, oh my God, we're going to go bankrupt. We're going to lose everything because they're going to tax us at, I think it was 95%.
95%, yeah.
So it's an important song.
Yeah.
And it's certainly a lot of musical influences that came in the, you know, the music that they used, the instruments that they used. How would you describe the song musically?
In terms of, like, its sonic sound, let's talk about that guitar solo in the middle. Paul does that guitar solo in the middle, And not George, it's Paul who does that. And to start off the song or the album with Taxman, which is like completely different than, you know, a normal Beatles song. This is cited as the first Beatles song to like cover topical like issues. And I guess sonically, especially with Paul's like guitar solo in there, it's kind of like nothing else the Beatles have done. Just straight up.
Revolver itself is nothing. The whole
Well,
album
exactly,
is
but-
nothing like they've ever anything they've done.
Especially sonically. This one starts off. I actually like love the way it starts off with like the 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, the beginning of the song.
I do.
It's yeah. You know, I would hope so. We just heard it, but that's actually the lore or whatever. There isn't that's not supposed to be like the song like counting the beat, because that's off the beat of what the song is. Okay, it's off beat. Apparently, it's supposed to be like the taxman collecting his money. You know, the 1, 2, 3, 4.
All right. So was it pleasant to hear? Is it a pleasant song? Is it a song that you're like, wow? Is the song? I'm not arguing the growth they've had. I'm not arguing about how important the song is. I'm talking, is the song pleasing to hear? When you hear Taxman, is that something you're going to play again and again? Is that something you're going to say, okay, this song motivates me, this moves me? The message comes across. It's an important song, but my rating for this song is not as high, I'm sure, as yours. I only gave it a 7.7. I don't like the sound of the song. I don't find it a pleasant song. I think it's an important song, but I don't have it as something that I'm going to play continuously.
I give it an 8.3.
Oh, it's not that far.
Yeah, not that far off. I think I do like Taxman, and I thought going into it this was going to be one of my faves on the album, and it's still a great song. Obviously, I don't know. I love the bass line, like the do.
Yeah, that's a cool line.
Cool bass line.
Right.
Great guitar solo from Paul. Obviously incredibly important. I give an 8.3. I really do like the song, and I think it's a great way to start off Revolver.
Okay, I think that's a fair score from both of us.
Yeah, you know, very similar. But next up, we got a pretty big one.
I agree.
Yeah, this is Eleanor Rigby.
This is, in my eyes, this is one of the most important songs in modern American music.
Okay, well, here it is.
Ah, look at all the lonely people.
Eleanor Rigby.
It's a movie.
Yeah.
It's a narrative. It's so sad. And who was it? What's his name? George Wilson, that put all the strings behind Paul.
George Martin.
George Martin,
The producer?
Yeah, George.
Yeah,
Martin.
it was a string octet. This is the only Beatles song that not a single Beatle plays any instrument. Okay? It's just the string octet, Paul's vocals, and then at the end there, John and George behind them doing like the
Right,
Yeah.
little vocals.
Mhm.
It's
That's
a
it.
remarkable song.
It's I feel like this is something that is, especially in like the pop world, in pop music, you know, being the biggest thing ever when they were at this era, this is something that like has never been replicated. Only string quartet in a pop song. This is the lead single from the album, is Eleanor Rigby. Okay, and having it be it's completely different than, you know, Love Me Do. Like, it's completely different. That it's completely shifted into like loneliness. It's all about the loneliness. All the lonely people. Where do they belong? Where do they come from? And I love this song. This song, I gave it a 9.6. Okay. I'm going to move that up to a 9.7, and here's why. Did not do a very good job putting my decimal points. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to need to have to do that better in future episodes. But I'm giving it a 9.7. It's an incredible song. I love the imagery of Eleanor Rigby, whoever she is. You know, this couple got married. They're gone. She's picking up the rice off the floor, which is the closest she'll ever get to marriage, as she is so lonely. And then you have Father Mackenzie preaching a sermon that no one will hear. These are two separate people living two separate lonely lives. And I think what's really cool is that in the final verse, Paul connects the two. He connects the story between the two.
It's a 10, Roman. I don't intend to give out very many 10s.
I don't either, and
I give it a 10. I think it's one of the great songs in the canon of modern music. It may be the greatest song. That's how important this song is. What it sticks with me from the time I heard it, how many years ago, 55, 56 years ago, when I may have heard it the first time. It's profoundly moving now at 62, almost 62. I think this is an extraordinary work of art, and Paul deserves, You know, that's why he's one of the great masters. I love words. I love the way he puts these lyrics together. As you said, oh my God, it breaks your heart. Eleanor Rigby, and we all know somebody like Eleanor Rigby, and it's
lonely
heartbreaking.
old lady.
Yeah, utter loneliness and being alone. I think it's a 10. I think it's lyrical perfection.
And I think even musically, it's just the 8 strings. George Martin like had to set up the microphones in a way where like the octet, they were not happy with it the way it was set up at all because they were just not used to it, you know. But like they wanted that specific sound. I remember reading something that on Rubber Soul the Beatles spent like 80 hours doing like the whole thing. The whole thing took 80 hours. Revolver took 220, which is a massive in terms of time put into it.
Totally different mindset for Revolver.
Absolutely.
They were not thinking about live performances. This was a studio album.
They were not performing any of these songs live anymore. Do whatever you want. Go crazy.
Right.
Go experiment. So after they like toured for Rubber Soul, they did like a North American tour, and that was the last tour after Rubber Soul. And after that period, they took a 3-month hiatus for coming back to work on this one in early-ish 1966.
Okay.
But in that time is when the Beatles notably started experimenting with psychedelics.
Well, that
Stuff like
comes
that.
through. They were doing some partying here.
And the next song potentially has ties to that. It's "I'm Only Sleeping."
When I wake up early in the morning,
I'm only sleeping.
Psychedelics, man. They were doing some partying on this
Man,
song.
man.
I think John was completely loaded when he put this one together.
I think this one's described as half acid trip, half John's lament to laziness. I see he was just a lazy guy. That's very well recorded. He loved his sleep. He loved his rest. He got pissed off at Paul for waking him up whenever they had a songwriting session. Which I think there's like lines in here that directly reference that. Please don't wake me. No, don't shake me. Leave me where I am. I'm only sleeping. That's just people are saying like, yeah, Paul, don't wake me up. I
still like it.
I love this song.
I still like this song.
I do like this song.
I think it's entertaining. I think it's got a nice flow to it. I like listening to it. I certainly am not anti I'm Only Sleeping. It's not a classic. It's not and there was a lot of trials on this and musical experimentation, right?
Yeah, George spent 5 hours trying to get that backwards solo the way he wanted it. Both Georges, I guess.
But
I
did
don't
they
know.
really need it? Does that
So,
make the song?
They wanted to do it to add like to keep the dreamy feel of the song, float upstream, like the dreamy
Okay, I'm
feeling.
with you. They kept the dreamy.
But they also, for this album, the Beatles didn't really want you to know what you were listening to. They wanted you to question like what am I listening to?
Okay, I question it.
And
I think it's an acid trip or an LSD trip is what I think I'm listening to. And it's pleasant, and I gave it a 7.
I think in terms of musicality, George literally had to write the guitar solo backwards so George Martin could do it in reverse. He literally played the guitar solo, twice, one clean, one with fuzz. George Martin reversed it afterwards, and that's George playing backwards is what that is. And also the little, at the outro there, is what that is. And I think...
Innovative.
I don't know.
Cool.
I think it's... I think that's genius. I think it's incredibly cool. I gave this a 9.0.
Wow.
Yeah, I love this song. I love how it flows. I love the harmonies on it.
I like the harmonies too. I don't think 7's that bad a score.
7 flat.
I gave it a 7 flat.
Yeah, that's not that bad of a score, and I respect that. But I don't know. I love this one.
Well,
I don't know
if you
why.
love it,
There's something about
okay.
it. There's something about it that just keeps me like
I'm glad it's different than mine.
Finger
One of the
tapping,
things
keep
we're
going.
doing differently in this rendition of the DeMarco record review is we're doing our score sheets before, so that I don't want to be influenced by what Roman says and vice versa. I think when we initially did this, a lot of times we would, put the scores down after we heard the song. I think it's better if we make our judgment calls before. Now, I think a little adjustment every now and then is okay if you get really convinced that you have the wrong score, but I'm staying with the 7 that I wrote.
Yeah, I'm 7.9. I love the song. I love the way it flows.
Okay.
I love the way it goes. Yeah, it gets a little bit weird, but honestly, that's the beauty of it. Is that it is a little bit weird.
Okay.
And weird isn't going anywhere. Next song is "Love You Too." So George on something.
I'm sorry. George described the album that some people will say that Revolver is a whole lot of a mess. This song to me is a mess. I'm not moved. The sitar doesn't do it for me. I find it repetitive. I think it's the weakest song on the album by a long stretch. And I only gave it a 5-1.
Yeah, I gave this one a 6-4. Not my favorite, but I still think there's a lot of good about it. You really can't listen to Eastern music with a Western ear. You just can't. It's just based on completely different.
That's fair. I'm trying to have an impartial ear, but is it pleasing to my ear? Do you think I'd ever get to a point where...
Honestly, I think some parts of the song are very pleasing to the ear. I think the melody is really good. I like how he mirrors the lyrical melody with the melody of the sitar. Like, love me while you can, before I'm a dead old man. I think the lyrics are really, interesting here. It's basically saying, like, it's kind of just like a carpe diem mindset.
I get it.
Like, and it's like very, I don't know, it's very psychedelic. I mean, it's George on something. I give it a 6-4. I think there's a lot of merit to the song. I think it's never been really replicated. Like, the only other use of a sitar you see
I'm
besides
glad it's
Beatles
not replicated. I don't want to
Painted Black
hear
by
it
the
again.
Stones.
Painted Black's a great
I know,
tune.
and it uses the sitar fantastically.
Okay, well, I am not comparing this song with Painted Black.
Yeah, well,
I'm sorry,
We're gonna move
5-1,
on.
I'm not changing.
all right. I'm 6-4. I'm not too much higher than you. Next song, though, is Here, There, and Everywhere.
Go ahead.
I'm just gonna
Play it.
We'll be there. And there.
Beautiful.
This is my favorite song of the album. 9-8.
More than Eleanor
No,
Rigby?
no, Rigby. I think this is my favorite Paul song. This is my favorite Paul song of all time. I love this song. It's so beautiful. The harmonies are gorgeous. I love the lyrical wordplay. He goes, it's called Here, There, and Everywhere, right? It starts with the intro, to lead a better life, I need my love to be here. The harmonies throughout the whole thing are so
The harmonies
beautiful.
are great. This is an answer to the Beach Boys.
Yes.
This is no question. This is an answer to Brian Wilson to show that they can do harmonies on par with what Brian puts together.
Absolutely. It's a direct reference to God Only Knows.
But the beauty of Paul's lyrics, it's a love song. And it is a heart-touching love song. And the passion that Paul feels for whoever the young lady is at the time, it comes through. It's a beautiful love song. I'm not giving it the score you gave. I think I don't put it quite with Eleanor Rigby, but I gave it a massive score too. I gave it a 9.5. A 9.5 is a massive score.
You act like you were going to go 6. I went 0.3 above you. I don't know. This is the only song. Fun
Well, I
fact.
don't think it's better than Eleanor Rigby, but I think it's a great song. All right.
I don't know. The way it starts with here, and then the next verse is there, and then the next when it gets to the
everywhere.
bridge.
Yes.
Well,
here,
yes,
there,
but not only
everywhere.
that, as soon I want her everywhere, that chord change there, okay? The music goes everywhere. Because it goes everywhere, but it goes back to the original, the here and the there, the same chord progression. Here, but in everywhere. Like that, the everywhere that Paul sings goes with the everywhere of the music going with it.
Okay.
I love this song.
Well, it's a great song, and
I'm
I
giving
think
it a
we're
9.8, and I'm keeping it.
Yeah, we're very similar anyway. But I except your comment that it's the best song of the album.
I think it's the best song on the album.
But it's a great.
You give it a 9.5. I'd be surprised if anything.
If we come up with too many songs that are higher than a 9.5, there's not going to be many. There's another one on this album, but there's not going to be many.
I have a couple more on this one. I have two more very big ones I'm looking forward to.
All right, go for it.
This is Yellow Submarine, though.
We all live in a yellow submarine.
I love this song. It's been something that sticks in your mind in my brain for 55 plus years, and it's a ridiculous children's song that just somehow takes me on a journey. And sure, there was probably a lot of partying being done as this thing was put together, but
Because what in the world does that mean? What could that possibly mean? I have no idea. I get it's supposed to be like, yeah, whatever, they're doing drugs. But this is a children's song that Paul wrote in his sleep that he was like, you know what? Let's give this one to Ringo. And you know when someone says, you know when Paul says, or John says, or George says, you know what? Let's give this song to Ringo. I don't know.
No, it's a happy song.
I know it's a happy song, but I just
song of
ever
joy.
since I've heard it, I don't know. It's
repetitive.
repetitive.
A song of joy.
I think,
and it's everybody living in a communal, happy world together in a yellow submarine. And everybody is peaceful and everybody's
yeah, it's supposed
joyous.
to be this utopia
Right.
in the sea.
And I love it. And I'm giving it an 8-9.
I'm giving it a 5-6. I'd rather hear "Love You Too" over this. I'm not even kidding. This song, I don't know.
This song.
I do not love this song.
I love Ringo.
I do love Ringo. Ringo's great, but
Oh, I think you're coming down on Ringo here.
it's not my least favorite song on the album. But I don't know. I just maybe because I've just heard it nonstop my entire life, and it's just the most repetitive thing ever. It's just the most repetitive thing
Seems
ever.
like a joyous place. I want to live in a yellow submarine. I want to go to the yellow submarine and travel around. I want to be there.
Last time a submarine was on the news, it was a bunch of billionaires running out of oxygen.
Yeah, well, not that
So-
submarine. I want to live in a place that's
I don't know if that one was yellow though.
a much happier, partier sort of world where they're having a great time. And who's on this thing singing backup?
He was on this thing singing backup. There's a lot of people. So obviously they're trying to be the party. It's supposed to be a party. Woo, yippee. So we got Mal Evans, the Beatles road manager, John Skinner and Terry Condon of Abbey Road Studios, Brian Jones, guitarist of the Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger, Marianne Faithfull, who's the romantic partner of Mick Jagger, Patty Boyd, spouse of George Harrison, Alf Bicknell, the Beatles chauffeur, Neil Aspinall, the Beatles road manager and later personal assistant, George Martin, and Jeff Emmerich, the engineer.
It's a party.
As well as John, Paul, George, and Ringo.
I think it's great. They're all
They
having
made.
a good time.
I think it's cool. I mean, they have all
And
of
I
these.
think Donovan,
Donovan helped make the Sky of Blue,
Right.
Sea of Green.
with the lyrics.
Yeah, let's go Donovan.
I'm not a Donovan fan.
Yeah, I
this
know,
is
you
my
love
favorite Donovan.
What? Sky of Blue, Sea of Green.
Yeah, I'm good. I
That's-
love Sky of Blue and Sea of Green. I'm in.
sh-
I love Sky of Blue and Sea of
I
Green.
think the sound effects are interesting. You know, like how they created it. You
Love
know,
it.
John blowing
8-9.
bulbs into
8-9. A
water.
song that I'll tell you something. If you ask people, you name the songs in Revolver and which songs they like best. After the
They're not even gonna know Yellow Submarine is on
They're
Revolver.
gonna say
They're not even gonna know Yellow Submarine is on
Yellow
Revolver, and I know that
Submarine
because I forgot Yellow
is my
Submarine was on
fourth or
Revolver.
fifth best song on this album.
Yellow Submarine, I
telling
completely
you.
forgot was on this.
And it
Revolver.
developed a life of its own. It became its own animated movie.
I think the animated movie is where the love of Yellow Submarine comes from you. I think this song, in terms of the entire Yellow Submarine movie project,
Don't
everything.
judge me where I'm not rating you. I'm sticking with my 8-9. Let's go to the next song. You're
I'm
judging
sticking with
me.
my 5. I'm not judging you. I'm judging Yellow Submarine. I'm not a fan of the. I don't know.
All right,
I think
fine.
the sound effects, they're a little
Fine.
clever. They're
Don't like
whatever.
Yellow
they're gimmicky.
Submarine.
I don't know. I'm not a fan.
Buzzkill. Buzzkill. Go to the
Buzzkill. Next
song.
up, we got She Said, She Said.
She said, you don't understand what I said.
All right, so to end off side one of the record, She Said, we got John, the second John appearance of the album. This is an interesting one. This is actually based off a conversation they had with this guy who, like, shot himself for something when he was young and technically knows what it's like to be dead, and that's where that came from. And John and George were pissed off at him.
What?
Yeah, that's
Are you
the
sure
story.
about that? I thought it was a Peter Fonda thing.
Yeah, Peter Fonda, exactly. Peter Fonda, he said, I know what it's like to be dead.
Peter Fonda's not some guy. Peter Fonda's an Oscar-nominated actor. He's the son of Henry and the brother to Jane and the mother to. He was the father to Bridget, who I knew when I lived in New York. This is a legendary, guy. But
Well,
he did party a lot. There's no question.
And he
Peter
was tripping
partied
on
a lot.
acid, and so was George, and so was John, and that's where this song comes from.
All right, so
of
it's
a
not
conversation.
some guy.
Okay, well, Peter Fonda.
All right, and it's obviously a serious, partying, strange song, but it's also there's something that is, it does take you on a little bit of a narrative.
It does. It tells a story. It
Right.
tells a story
It
of a
definitely takes you on a
conversation, of an
narrative.
argument.
I do find it more pleasing than Love You Too. I find it much more pleasing to listen to than that. It does have a dreamlike musical sequence. I like the song. I don't love it. I like it. I gave it a 7.4.
I give it a 7.5. So
there
we're
we
right
are,
there with each
almost
other.
identical.
Another cool thing about the song is that like the "When I Was a Boy."
Yeah, I love that. And the harmonies there.
It goes in the 3/4 for a second there. That's actually part of a completely different song that John had unfinished, and George was like, "Eh, what the heck? Just throw it in this one," and it worked out great.
No, it kind of fits in
yeah,
the,
it fits well.
very deep part of this lyrical content. Putting that in there actually sets that juxtaposition.
Yeah, and I love the transition between the two, the little part there. It's very short, but it's really nice. I give it a 7.5. A very solid
Right,
song.
so we're very similar.
Yeah, to end off the first half of the album. And honestly, I think in terms of, if we're talking about the flow of the album so far, I think starting off with Taxman and Eleanor Rigby to like a song about corruption and a song about loneliness. Okay, to start off the album, I don't know. I'm just looking through it and just realizing this into the psychedelicness of Only Sleeping in Love You Too. Okay, complete change of pace there, right? But I think there's something about the Love You Too to Here, There, and Everywhere. Those two love songs from completely different perspectives, right next to each other on the album. Okay,
Interesting.
and the way, and like that's a little like Here, There, and Everywhere is like the one sense of like stability, I want to say, before it gets right back to Yellow Submarine. She said, you know, where they're the entire point is that they're tripping balls. But yeah, next up, we got another Paul song. We got Good Day Sunshine.
Good day, sunshine. Good.
Well, this fits into the 60s, doesn't it?
Yeah, this is classic Paul. This is just oozes classic Paul. You know, cheesy, silly little love song with a bumping piano.
I love this song. I'm in. I'm with him. I feel the 60s. I feel good in a special way.
I like it.
I'm in love.
It's
I
not-
think it's a great song. It's a simple song, and that's okay. How many simple Paul songs are tremendous? Michelle, Yesterday. Simple's fine. There's nothing wrong with simple.
Especially on this album. It's a complete contrast.
Right. There's
everything
not a
else.
lot
I
of
agree with
very
that.
simple. I love it. I'm giving it a 9.7 because I think it's
Whoa!
I think it's a great song, a perfect, beautiful song. Very simple, joyous, happy song.
I disagree. I think Here, There, and Everywhere does the same thing this song does 20 times better. I think this song is repetitive. It's just like, I have a pretty girl, it's sunny.
And what's wrong with
It's
that?
a good day.
And what's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with it. I gave it a 6.8 because
6.8?
6.6 actually.
6.
I gave it a 6.6 because
You gave it the devil's number. Why do you go at 6.6?
I'd probably give it like a 6.67. I wouldn't go for the third one.
Okay.
But I'd round up. But it is Cheesy Paul, and I love Cheesy Paul. I love Silly Paul, and I still love this song. It's a good song.
You can't say love with a 6.6.
I like the song. I like
can't
the
say
song. I
love
don't
with a
love the song.
6.6.
I like the song.
6.6 not love.
I do love the
6.6
piano.
is
I
not a
think
love.
the bass sound of the piano is so muddy, so muffled. I can barely hear the bass of the piano, and I know it's not just a speaker thing because I've heard it on these headphones, my car speakers, and another pair of headphones throughout the day, and it's been like that. I've noticed that the entire time. It's bothering me just how muddy the bass notes of the piano are. There's no words. There's like I'm looking
You
at the
don't
words.
need a lot of words.
It's like
Louie, do you understand any words?
No.
Louie.
Brings up the Louie every time. I hope that picked that up.
Yeah, it just is a great song. I'm in. 9.7. Done.
I don't know. I'm giving it a 6.6. It's a good song. It's not a bad song. No song in this album is bad.
Oh, I think that sitar song's not very good.
I think that song's fine. Honestly, not better than this song, but honestly, it's close. Because I think
I hope you wouldn't lie. You're using honestly a lot. I hope you don't need to say honestly, because I wouldn't expect you to lie.
I'm not. Well, I wouldn't lie about the scores. I just look at the sheet and I read the wrong one.
I've given my score 9.7. I'm keeping it, and it is high, and I'm proud of it.
I'm getting
simple
6.6.
love song.
But you're convincing me probably to go up a little bit, but I'll keep this for now because that's what I originally wrote. But
All right,
I'd probably go up.
Keep
but
going.
Next up, we got And Your Bird Can Sing.
And your bird can sing, but you don't get me.
And Your Bird Can Sing.
I think it's the hidden gem on the album.
I like this one. a fair bit.
I think it's a hidden gem. I like John's listening to a young lady giving her worldview, and he's just like, sorry. Sorry. That's kind of how he's sitting in. I love the music early. I love that groove early. Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah, it's Paul and George on dual guitars here. Many people think this song's about Mick Jagger. It's talking to Mick Jagger. Andrew Bird can sing, Marianne Faithfull.
Or maybe it's Marianne talking.
Well, people think it's John talking to Mick because of the last line. Andrew Bird can swing because Marianne Faithfull is bisexual.
There you go.
So, that's...
Who knows?
Who knows? Certainly not me. John hates the song. He says it's despicable horror. Yeah, he's not a fan of this one.
John can hate it all he wants. I like it very much. I think it's a really interesting song. I can't imagine what their lives were like come mid-'60s when they were the focus of everybody around the world. I love the song. I don't care what Lennon says if he hates it. I like it. I
don't care what Lennon says either. I don't care.
You
what
want to
Lennon
hear a great score? How about 9-4?
Wow, that's way harder than I thought you were going. I thought like, okay, maybe you can give it an 8. I gave it a 6-8. I think it's an all right song. It just doesn't stick out to me like other songs do on this album. And I gave it a 6-8. I still like it. I still think it's a good song. I think the lyrics are interesting. I think if it's cool that if it's about Mick Jagger, and yeah, and I don't know, but it just doesn't stick out to me, especially like this next one for no one.
And in her eyes you see nothing, no sign.
For no one. 9-7. I love the song.
It's a beautiful song. Paul's on a roll in this album.
Yes.
Paul has written some of the greatest songs of his career on this album, and this is one of them. This is another song that just wrecks your soul when you no longer connect with your partner, and nothing you can say will make a difference. It's just another magical touch from one of the great lyricists of music history. I'm giving it a huge score too. I'm giving it a 9-2.
9-2. I'm 9-7 here. It's on the same. Honestly, I kind of want to go back and give this Here, There, and Everywhere, and I kind of want to change them all to 10s, but I'm not going to do that. I wrote what I wrote. But I don't know. This is the Paul with the triple crown here, at least for me. This one it's just so sad. He wanted a flugelhorn on it, not flugelhorn, French horn.
Oh, the
on it.
horns.
Adam Civil on the French horn. He went up to George Martin, Paul. It was like, I want French horn in the song. And George Martin was like, let me get you the best there is. Went to the London Philharmonic Orchestra and got the lead horn guy, Adam Civil, and played on it. And apparently he didn't have any direction. He was just he just had to busk it almost. Paul and George George Martin were like, yeah, do this. And he kind of had an idea and just kind of was able to run with it into that beautiful solo. Oh my God.
It's a beautiful solo.
I love this song.
This is a great song.
9-7. It's
a song that sometimes gets forgotten, I think, but it's one that you need to hear. It's Paul at his best.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Next up, we got John at not at his best, in my opinion. We got Dr. Robert.
Ring my friend, I said you called Dr. Robert.
I often think about those days in the 60s before there were all these anti-drug laws. I mean, the electric Kool-Aid acid test, the period of the Grateful Dead and Ken Kesey, they tried everything. And the same thing was going over in England and happening across the world for those that wanted to experiment. So I think it was, if you knew a doctor, Dr. Robert, for instance, you could get whatever you wanted. Now, this song was left off of the U.S. version of Revolver.
Well, it was this. What was it? Andrew Bird Can Sing and I'm Only Sleeping. 3 John songs were left off of the U.S. version of Revolver, because it was just released actually on the U.S. yesterday and today. They just came out on that album, and were instead left off in Revolver, but it was later reinstated on the U.S. version when it came out as a CD in the 80s.
But we're doing the original UK version.
How it was recorded.
Right.
Yes.
And I don't think it's a bad song. I think it's pleasing. I think it's interesting. I like the song. I don't love the song. I gave it a score of 7.2. I could also see why it was left off the US version. But I'm fine with it because I know it fits the time. It helps to tell the story and the theme. I mean, this is Dr. Roberts, the one who's getting them all what they need to get psychedelic. He's the one who's letting them get high because Dr. Roberts giving them what they need. He'll pick you up. He'll give you a special cup. So I don't think it's a bad tune. I can see why it's left off, but I'm good with my 7.2.
I give it a 4.8.
Okay.
I do not like the song.
All right.
I think this is the only song on the album I can say I actively dislike it. I don't know. There's good things about it, but it's just like it's John for 2 minutes.
Yeah, musically it's not.
Musically, it's nothing. I don't know. It's
Didn't do
like
it
I'll
for
listen
you.
to it. It didn't do it to me. Like it's not a
okay.
terrible
It
song.
didn't do it
It's
for
not a bad
you.
song, but it's just like yeah.
Well,
I think the
that
lyrics are
score
interesting.
is a bad song.
Okay.
4.8.
Maybe I'm
for
going a little
Beatles.
harsh. I think I might be going a little harsh.
4.8 is a bad score.
Yeah.
Especially when you're just talking about the Beatles.
And
we shouldn't let that affect us.
I really don't think that should affect it. Yeah. I feel like the Beatles are allowed to make bad songs. They don't have many.
You're right, but when you're judging a song, since it does come back to our own personal, all these factors that we're weighing, the fact that it's the Beatles does add credence to the song, no matter what the song. What?
Is that Clearwater?
Not funny.
That's not pretty funny.
No, not funny. All right, so I'm sticking with my 7.2.
Would you say it brings a revival to the song?
7.2.
I'm going 4.8. I do think there are good elements of the song. I do like how no one knows who Dr. Robert is. It could be Dr. New York that they talk about. It could be John says it might be about him, or someone they say that they think it's about John. John is Dr. Robert, who's the one carrying the pills. Or they think they're talking about
That's interesting. Maybe it's a character John plays.
Or
that makes it even more interesting.
Or maybe we're talking about Dr. Bob Robert Zimmerman, Dylan, who gave them pot for the first time.
Maybe it's the great Dr. Zimmerman.
So
that adds
honestly,
to it too.
No idea.
Those two theories make me like the song even more.
I don't know.
7.2.
It just doesn't do it to me. It's not unlistenable. Obviously it's a perfectly fine song. There's nothing wrong with it, but there's not a lot that's right with it. Is the problem.
Okay. Well, to me, it's much more pleasant than "Love You Too."
I disagree. Honestly, I'd rather hear the sitar song than this easily.
Okay.
We're almost there. We're at song 12. I'm gonna tell you.
I'm good. I'm ready.
I want to tell you.
Well, that's my favorite George song on the album. I like the song.
I agree. This is my hidden gem.
This is your hidden gem.
You had interpreted. I have this one. I really like this one. I like what it does with musically and lyrically, how it works together. Again, I love when songs do that. So I want to tell you my head is filled with things to say, and then it goes, when you're here, all those words I seem to slip away as the music goes into this incredibly dissonant, like it sounds like an alarm almost, like like a something's wrong type thing.
I thought those dissonant chords would probably bother me more than they do, but they don't. I also feel that George is obviously on psychedelics, and he used to describe this song and the avalanche of thoughts that would come to his head, and he's unable to get the words out. You could feel that as he's singing this.
Yeah, and I honestly didn't even think of this song as a trip song. I thought of this song as just he's trying to tell a girl, I'm assuming, something, and
it's a trip song.
Yeah, but
It's
I
a
don't know.
trip
I never
song.
thought of it
I
as a
gave
trip
it a
song.
7.9.
Well, the entire album is a trip song, but yeah, I gave it an 8.9.
Oh,
I really
okay.
like the song.
You went way up.
I know, I really like the song.
7.9 for me, which I feel good about.
Yeah, that's your social score.
I think it's a good song. I don't think it's the best on the album. I think it's George's best on the album, and an interesting song about taking psychedelics, unable to put all the thoughts that are flying through your head into words.
Okay, well, I'm never able to put my thoughts into words. And I've never done psychedelics, so
Good. Don't ever do them.
yeah. Anyway, we're moving on. We got to get you into my life. We got another Paul classic.
Got to get you into my life.
Another Paul does it again. This is Paul's best album in terms of what Paul does. I love that song. I'm giving it a 9.6.
I gave it a 9.9. I think it's
Yeah.
an all-time classic.
I love that song. I
think
honestly,
it's one of the Beatles' best songs.
I
think it's. I know it's sort of homage.
yeah,
Am I saying that right?
it's an homage.
Homage
Pays homage
to whether it's Motown or Memphis Soul or the Rascals. The horns, man.
I love the horns.
The horns.
I love the horns.
That's a classic American thing. I love
Mhm.
to see the Beatles bringing that in.
And then I love the little ending there. He was kind of just riffing. I was alone. I took a ride. I know how to find it. Like he was,
Yeah, it's
I
great.
love when it breaks like the structure of the song, or at least like the melody, to do its own thing, and the horns complement it perfectly. Oh, I love the song.
I mean, it's a little James Brown or
Yeah.
Al Green. It's great. It is a phenomenal song. It's one of the great songs in rock and roll history. It's a pure rock song. I mean, this is a rock and roll classic tune. 9.9, and in my eyes, after Eleanor Rigby, it's. I give Eleanor Rigby a 1. This is a 1A. These are the two standout tracks in my eyes.
Yeah, this is right up there with the 4 that I was talking about. Honestly, they're pretty interchangeable for me, those 4 Paul tracks.
But there's 3 ballads. This is a rock and roll
I know.
song.
And that just goes to show Paul's versatility.
Okay, well, Paul's on fire in this album.
Paul is absolutely on fire.
And this song is an all-time classic.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah.
I loved what Earth, Wind, and Fire did with it a couple years later, too. They
Mhm.
did a
Yeah, they did
smoking version
Yeah, that went gold too. That did well.
of Got to Get You.
And that's a good one too.
that
That's a fun
is
one.
that is a great version. But for
That's
this
a
album,
perfect song
at
for
this
Earth, Wind, and
time, 9.9.
Oh, for sure. 9.6 for me. But next up, we have the last song on the album. We got a closer. It's John. It's a weird one. It's
Yeah,
the
go
first one they
for it.
recorded of the album. It's
Go
Tomorrow
for
Never
it.
Knows.
Another strange one.
It is a strange one, but honestly, I think this encapsulates. I think this is the perfect closer for the album.
It's a
In
good
terms
closer.
of what Revolver is, I think it's a perfect closer. Yeah, honestly, when growing up, after hearing the song for the first time, and I don't know, reading about anything about the Beatles when I was like 6, I was like, oh, this must be what drugs feel like. This song.
Well, this is
That's
certainly.
that's what in my mind for however many years I've heard the song.
I don't think you need drugs. When you listen to this song, you're like, I'm on some strange trip.
Yeah. And like hearing every little detail in the sound produced, like the sonic quality of it, just like the way they like took different tapes and produced things. There's like backward stuff again here. There's like, speeding off of random tapes. You have
Lots of
sitar again.
Yeah,
you
lots
have
of
sitar again.
experimentation. But I don't mind it. I
don't
gave it a
either.
7.5.
I have an 8.1.
Okay.
That's 0.6 difference.
Yeah, it's not that big a difference. It's not a song that I would ever play on its own, but in the context of the album. And a lot of times when we do this, in the context of the album, the songs take on a little larger life. So I think it's fine to say, I'm going to give it this song a score, but I'm doing it in the context of the album. Because I think if I heard this song simply on its own, I wouldn't give it a 7.5. But as the closer, as part of the album, and it certainly is a classic song that fits this theme, I'm good with my 7.5 to close out the album.
Yeah, I'm able to close out the album just because it fits so well. It's the perfect closer. Like, I don't know, especially of this era, of this album, of what the Beatles were at the time, the level of, I don't know, the experimentation and innovation in Tomorrow Never Knows. And this is when they completely started changing from, like, you know, the early days of the Beatles, the
Love Me Do, All My Lovin'. Yeah, this
up
is
to
totally
next up is Sgt. Pepper's. So there's this era of change, and I think Tomorrow Never Knows perfectly encapsulates that.
All right, so we sit there and tally up our scores, right? We take the scores of each song and then we divide it by the number of songs in the album. For me, my total came out to 116 divided by 14 gives me 8.3. Then you get the 8.3, you multiply it by 7, and I come up with a 58. So
right, well,
70% of our scores are based on the songs. And so it's essentially 58 out of 70. I guess a perfect score would be a 70.
70 out of 70, for sure.
So 58 out of 70 is pretty good. Now we go to our
I didn't even get to do mine.
Other top. Well, go. Yeah, what did I say?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Is this the Tony show?
No, it's Roman. Go.
Yeah, it's the DeMarco record review. I ended up with a total of 110.6, which is 7.9 out of 10, which equals out to 55.4 out of 70. So we're around the same,
Yep.
similar wise. And I'm sure we're gonna have similar ones for the last 3 categories. It's Revolver.
I do too.
I think, yeah. So the last 30%, impact, influence, vision, theme, flow, and then the it factor. Just the gut reaction, how it hits you. Starting off with the impact and influence, 9.8.
I gave it a 10.
Yeah,
I think it's one
I've
of the
noticed-
most influential albums of all time.
I don't give a lot of 10s. I've never given out like a 10. And I
All
don't
right.
know what will constitute a 10, but yeah, I'm not sure yet. But I'm still figuring that out in my own grading system.
And this is our first time back, so
we're a little rusty.
it might evolve.
Yeah, and we can always do a little re-listen
Sure.
if it gets to that point. But for now, impact influence, I'm giving 9.8. You gave it a 10. Not much to be said there. It's Revolver. Like, come on. Like, there were sounds on this album that have just never been made before.
Its impact is massive.
Oh, yeah. And then the vision theme flow, I put 9.5. I think the way it's not necessarily treated as like a Beatles album from the Beatles standpoint. They treat it as the first acid album, the first drug album. And they perfectly encapsulated that, starting with Taxman, the corruption, into the loneliness of Eleanor Rigby, into the drug rabbit hole. I think, just starting from that depressing start into, the time they were in, the state of mind they were in, perhaps. I think it flows beautifully. And I think it ends with Tomorrow Never Knows. I think you can't have a better closing than that, which goes into that. And yeah, 9.5.
We're almost identical here. I gave it a 9.4.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why I have to argue my point here. It's Revolver.
You
I
don't.
think we're gonna argue.
It flows. There's a couple songs that I don't know. Yeah, as you said, Dr. Robert. The other one, I Love You Too. I could see leaving a couple off. So it's not perfect, but I think it's a really nice. It's all it all sticks to the theme. It all flows the way an album should. No album is. I always talk about Born to Run, and I know I'm in the bag for Bruce, but in terms of themes and running, this is pretty close. It has a pretty continual theme. You could feel it throughout.
And I think if we're going to talk about vision, theme, flow of an album, I think this also kind of goes with like the thematics, the actual like behind the scenes of like the art, the title of it. Why is it called Revolver? What is this picture of these drawings.
Do you know why it's called Revolver?
I do know why it's called Revolver, actually.
Why?
So
I kind of
least
have heard
I kind
a
of-
rumor that it just revolves around the turntable
yeah,
over and over
that's
again.
well, that's
And they didn't
that's
have
one
a
of them.
better name, but it also kind of fits that mind set, revolve, evolve.
well,
Maybe there's something about evolve. and
well,
revolve.
do you know what is happening between the lead singers every track?
What?
They're revolving. It's revolving. The singer. It's always a revolve. There's no singer back to back.
Right. Okay.
Okay. And obviously revolving on a turntable, and obviously they were thinking of like pendulum as a name, I think. And yeah, and then this incredible album art, the black and white, which was supposed to be completely against the vivid colors that people wanted at the time. They completely, not necessarily dumbed it down. That's not the way to do it, but made it black and white.
Distinctive.
They specifically took, and by that I mean the artist who is,
and I do think
Vorman.
This is the category that cover art.
Yes, it falls in. This is where that falls in.
It would fall in.
And
right there.
honestly, and I love looking at a good cover art. I miss
do
the
too.
days
I do
of
too.
having the day of the things in the back. And if you look at the back of the album,
You didn't have the days. You weren't born in the time of albums. They're coming back now. But you got CDs,
I had
which
CDs.
are cool. CDs.
that's what I mean. CDs, like you have the little
Smaller.
the booking,
Right.
Yeah, but and then they have the back with all the sunglasses. Ringo's dorky little. What are these? Yeah, and so Klaus Vorhan was his name. Klaus Vorman, and if you actually see above, I'm gonna try to pull a bigger image for you. But if you look right on the right of the album, on George's hair under John's mouth, right there, that's Klaus. Okay. And you can see on the hair strand above his head that it's signed there
All
on
right.
George's hair.
That's very cool.
And I think,
didn't
I don't
that.
know, it's a great album cover. Apparently he did this completely from he didn't have like a reference or anything, just did it from memory and just tried to get the hair detail, and he did get the hair detail. And yeah, great album.
All right. So the last one is the Je ne sais quoi, gut reaction, it factor, all those concepts. I think it's a 10 again. I think this is an album that, its importance in musical history is it's hard to overstate this album's importance.
I had 9.3.
Okay.
So not
You didn't
necessarily
like it
10.
as much? All right.
I didn't like it as much. It's a 9.3. That's not. We're not gonna be giving too many 9.3s in terms of Genesis
No,
Quos.
no,
So
And I don't know if that 10, if that's, I think it's my first time in a while doing this. You're right.
yeah, because
Maybe
I don't
went a
because
lot.
I've never given out a 10s. I don't know. 4 is low for me too. Usually my range, usually the lowest I ever give a song is like a 5 if it's a bad
Right,
song.
right.
Because in my eyes, if a song is written, there has to be a point for that song to be written. That the artist made a conscious
effort.
decision
Yep.
to put it on the album, to write the song the way that they did.
Yeah.
So it can't be that bad. I don't know. Maybe I just really don't like Dr. Robert. But
All right. So totals.
totaling it all up, I have my 55.4, your 58 from the songs themselves. I'm 70. For me, add 9.8, 9.5, 9.3 for those 30% to get a total of 84 out of 100.
All right. My total's 87. I think that's a strong total.
I think that's a very strong total. as well.
When you look at, and who knows as we jump back into this where that'll rank and if it needs to be re-listened to at some point.
Mhm.
But I think an 87 is obviously indicative of a classic. And this album is a classic.
I think if you get above an 80, if you're averaging like,
Right. I think a score above
Yes.
80 is a classic. And-
if you leave an album and you feel like, and it made you feel like it gave it over an 8 out of 10, that's your feeling of the album, your mood of the album, that's a pretty good album.
Yeah, this is an experience.
Oh,
This
yeah.
album is an experience. It's a trip.
Mhm.
It's an adventure. And I'm thrilled to revisit it with you. I think it's a good first time back.
Absolutely.
A little clunky. We weren't perfect on this first time back. But,
Yeah, but new format, we're messing around with things.
all right.
We're
So
just having fun.
there you go. 84, 87, pretty similar.
Yeah, but which is even with the differences in songs. Like
Right.
you had your favorites, I had my favorites.
That's right.
And like for example, you liked Dr. Robert a lot more than I did. You liked Good Day Sunshine far more than I did, and they all seem to even out, which is really interesting. And it's gonna be cool to see how that happens throughout different albums, like what songs we like.
All right. Well, you're in charge of picking the next one.
All right. Well, I'll come up with that.
And we have to find another time to get together. But this Return of the DeMarco record review is in the books. We got it.
We will see you next time.
And we will see you on
There
our next
will be a next time
edition of the DeMarco record review.
Absolutely. Thank you all for watching. Peace.
Bye.